The Premier League title race has taken on a different complexion due to this result. Arsenal lost 2-1 to Bournemouth at the Emirates Stadium, so Arsenal's performance at the end of the season will determine it. But if they lose the trophy, this is the kind of defeat that could be called the game where we lost the trophy in the middle of the season's journey. This is a game where fans might remember it as the game that made us slip. So, there are remaining games, and the results in those games might either amplify the significance of this game or make it forgotten. But for example, in the 2023-24 season, Arsenal's loss to Aston Villa or Manchester City's win against Tottenham, where they missed a big goal-scoring opportunity, are considered to very crucial turning point games, especially Arsenal's loss at home to Aston Villa and the fact that they finished only 2 points behind City, and it was their only loss in the second half of the season, makes it remembered as a turning point of a game where they slipped and fell. This game has changed the picture of the title race, because the big mathematical equation it has now changed is that Manchester City can become champions if they win all their games, because the current point difference between Arsenal and Manchester City is 6, but Manchester City has one game in hand, its previously postponed game against Crystal Palace. If they win these games, they have the potential to narrow the point difference to just 3. We should remember that in between, they will face Arsenal at the Etihad next week, and this game has the potential to be a title decider. It has the power to decide the trophy. So, if Manchester City wins all their games now, they can reach 85 points. This includes beating Arsenal. So, if Arsenal wins that game, their maximum possible point total will also be 82. Arsenal has 6 games remaining. If they win all 6 games, they can get an additional 18 points, so they can reach 88 points. However, if they don't win that City game, they can only reach 85 points if they win it. So, suddenly that game became key and changed the context of the title race. In terms of performance, it was a very weak performance. It was a very poor display. Before the game started, Mikel Arteta's press conference and the excitement and warmth in it, where he said things like, "Tomorrow, eat your breakfast well, bring your lunch, and create a special atmosphere in the stadium." He tried to motivate them, but the team we saw on the field, the players' performance, was less motivated than the fans. There was a 9-point gap, and they had the chance to extend the lead to 12 points with 7 games remaining. Arsenal hasn't won the Premier League in 22 years, and what bigger opportunity could they have than this? But the performance of Arsenal's players doesn't seem like a motivated team, and Arsenal is experiencing a big dip in form, the worst possible time of the season. In fact, if you look at most of the games Arsenal has won since the start of 2026, as I mentioned, call it grinding out results. These were results achieved with great difficulty. They beat Brighton, they struggled against Everton until the last minutes, then won with goals scored in the final moments. They lost to Manchester United, they drew with Wolves and Brentford, and recently, in the 2 cup competitions, they lost to Manchester City and Southampton last year. They drew with Leverkusen in Germany, and so on. In many games, regardless of the result, Arsenal's form was not right, even when they won. Perhaps, if we don't mention that Tottenham game where they won 4-1, and even then, we need to consider Tottenham's situation, except for that game, and perhaps the game against Leverkusen at home. Apart from these occasional notable games, Arsenal has been struggling a lot, but even in those struggling games, they used to win. But now, at a very crucial time of the season, they have entered a big momentum problem. In the last 4 games, they have lost 3 games in 3 different competitions, except for the game where they beat Sporting in midweek. Even that was difficult to call a brilliant performance. Arsenal has lost 6 games in total this season, but 3 of those losses came in the last 4 games. Before that, in the previous 49 games, they had only lost 3 games all season. So, they have entered such a problem at a very key period of the season. 50% of Arsenal's defeats this season have come from losing 3 3 of their last 4 games. The one were losses to City and Southampton, and now they have been defeated by Bournemouth. Often, we see teams that win big trophies shift gears, add an extra gear. At this time of the season, we have seen the quality level Bayern Munich played at recently, Paris Saint-Germain or Barcelona, and previously Manchester City, Manchester United, Chelsea, even Arsenal in the seasons they won trophies. This is the time of the season, around March and April, when they shift gears. But Arsenal, since the start of this year, has had a general performance issue, and now a results issue, and it was a very poor performance at all levels, in almost every department. Sometimes, a defeat can happen, a team can play well, and the opponent's goalkeeper saves 7 or 8 attempts, and then they can say, what more could we do? A team can be defeated in such a way. It happens sometimes. We say there are uncontrollable things in football, but this one, in terms of defense, there has been a noticeable lack of defensive play in recent weeks. The midfield completely unable to control the game, unable to control the opponent's pressing. The attack has been broken, with no attacking power, no attacking ability. We will try to address it department by department. Even think Bournemouth, of all the teams that have come to the Emirates this season, looked the most dominant, and Arsenal's performance was one of the weakest of the season, not only in all departments, but also in other elements of the game. Tactically, Mikel Arteta was defeated in one aspect. Mentally, the team showed that it struggles to handle pressure again. Technically, the team showed a significant technical deficiency, so there were problems in all departments. The midfield was not sufficiently cohesive. The wingers did not win their individual duels. Everything was a struggle. I want to start with the technical deficiency. Indeed, looking at the starting 11, the coach has been struggling with injuries. In this game, for example, he didn't have 4 or 5 players who could have been in the starting lineup. So, 40% of the players who could have been in the starting lineup were not available for this game. Martin Odegaard was not in the lineup again for this game. Bukayo Saka was also not there. Both fullbacks were absent, Ricardo Calafiori and Jurriën Timber, who have been injured for months, and Mikel Merino were also not there, and I know he struggled with limited choices. It might also be difficult to include the returning Miles Lewis Skelly in the starting lineup right away. So, overall, especially if you look at the players' profiles, because they are players who can increase Arsenal's technical quality. It might be due to a lack of options, but Arsenal's technical quality, right from the starting lineup, you could see that there could be problems. Indeed, Arteta's later choices were also confusing. From the first half, from the first whistle of the game was open. Arsenal's players are speed players, and so, you could see that there was a problem with the attacking fluidity. There was a lot of open space, but Arsenal used fast players. Bournemouth, for example, not only scored early in the first half, but was also the better team. They controlled more of the ball, controlled more areas of the field, played more passes, and seemed like the more dangerous team. They pressed Arsenal, just like City did last time, targeting the goalkeeper, but then also blocking them from progressing to the upper half of the field. Sometimes by blocking, other times by pressing. They were very effective. Most of Arsenal's passes were confined between the goalkeeper and the 2 central defenders. When Arsenal tried to play long balls, Senesi and Hill, the 2 players, won the aerial duels. On the wings, the battle between Martinelli and Jimenez. Jimenez often won on the left for Bournemouth, and on Arsenal's right, the battle between Madwek and Traore. Both Bournemouth fullbacks won, especially in terms of pressing. Arsenal's players' pressing was not up to standard. This once again highlights the necessity of having Odegaard. When I say Odegaard, I don't mean just any Odegaard. I mean the Odegaard we know when he's in good form, because this season has been a difficult one for him, both in form and before. Even from the current Arsenal options, Odegaard, who is not at full fitness and is struggling with form, is by far the best Arsenal player, both when the opponent presses Arsenal and when Arsenal tries to press the opponent. Arsenal's recent struggles, especially into specific areas, can be explained tactically and technically. When pressed, Arsenal has no outlet to play out. There's no player with the personality to receive the ball. There's no press-resistant player who plays boldly between the lines. That player is Odegaard. From the current squad, when Arsenal is pressing, I know one player is returning from a long-term injury, which could be part of the problem, but especially when playing in a midfield role. I don't think he's a capable pressing player. Havertz was never pressing him. If Odegaard were there, he would back-press the opponent's defenders. Arsenal fans know this because we've seen it many times. But in this game, for example, Bournemouth's central defender was dictating play from behind completely unchallenged. He was picking passes at will. This was a very significant problem. Beyond that, Bournemouth, a team known for being willing to have under 45% possession and playing fast transitions under their manager, seemed to recognise that Arsenal was struggling, which may be why they appeared more as a possession-based team in this match compared to other games. They were more willing to control the ball, dominate territory, make more passes, and retain possession. In the first half, they were better across key metrics. It might be marginal, but Arsenal had 51% possession and 140 to passes against Bournemouth's typical behaviour, especially compared to how they play against bigger clubs. The difference in style was remarkable. Arsenal's players were completely unable to control Bournemouth's quick positional rotations. Their movement was untrackable. Trossard, Christie, and Senesi were constantly switching positions, a lot of rotation, a lot of movement, not just winning individual duels, but dominating across all departments. Above all, there's something similar to the Manchester City game that I don't understand how it still hasn't been addressed. In the Manchester City game, it wasn't tactically that complex, but there was a very effective mix of pressing and blocking. Not a full-fledged press, but with the four attacking players Holland, Doku, Saka, Bernardo Silva, staying close together in proximity, the way they blocked and closed the lines on Arsenal's first build-up phase. The first 25 to 30 meters was Arsenal's biggest challenge. There was a lot of discussion after that game, but in this match, it was almost the same challenge Arsenal faced. Bournemouth's second goal was created precisely because Arsenal could not play out from their own half with a clean build-up. But this was a problem throughout the entire game, just like the Carabao Cup final. When trying to play short, they couldn't break through Bournemouth's press. Central progression was simply insufficient. When going long, Bournemouth's defenders won almost every aerial duel. That's why Odegaard was a massive absence in the previous game, and in this game too. He was a massive absence. The team's technical quality appeared significantly deficient. On top of that, by committing 11 tactical fouls in the first half alone, using cynical pressing and tactical fouling, Bournemouth effectively prevented Arsenal from playing out from their own half. He's a personality player who, when under pressure, can receive the ball between the lines. A personality player who is hard to find. Someone who can hold the ball, receive it under pressure, and who says, "Don't worry, give me the ball." This is what is now missing from Arsenal, whether it's a player like Xhaka or Jorginho. These are players who aren't afraid of difficulty. That said, this is exactly what Arsenal needs to try to build up from the back, because in Arsenal's current system, any player who tries to receive the ball in the defensive third is pressured quickly. Even if you receive and turn, there is no clear passing option. The angles are not there. There is no player who takes that responsibility. And going forward, there is no player who creates that personality role to carry the ball out. So what makes a creative player who can step up? The pressing of the opponent is the problem, not having a player who resists pressure and is willing to be found in tight spaces. And now what is happening here recently in the area when the build-up is being blocked, Arsenal's defender is struggling even to begin the play, because whenever they try to play from the back, all the exit options are closed, one option or not. Even the side routes are blocked. So you can see in this game against Bournemouth how they couldn't play through the lines. Because inside Bournemouth's pressure, Arsenal tried to pass out from the back, but they couldn't find a way through. The midfielder, who was supposed to be between the lines, couldn't provide an option. So what is Arsenal's solution? They went long. The goalkeeper Raya made 20 long passes in that game, which is much higher than his average of 15 long passes per game. This shows that Arsenal couldn't play through the press. Even the central midfielder, who was supposed to receive, there were 60 ball touches in the game. Even Arsenal's passing in their own half was very poor. First, they had 38 passes in the first half, and Arsenal's build-up was completely blocked. When Bournemouth were pressing, around the 60-minute mark the ball was recovered, and there were about 20 ball recoveries in the opposing half, and the stats were showing Arsenal struggling to hold and progress the ball, whether from the right side or the left side. There was clearly no forward connection. Even reaching the final third was a challenge. Arsenal's defence also lacked the technical efficiency to resist when pressed. There were moments of panic where the players were trying to get rid of the ball quickly, instead of playing through it. The real issue is that Arsenal no longer have a player who can calmly receive the ball under pressure. Someone who slows down the game, faces the press, and makes things simple. Previously, players like Shocker at the base of the midfield or Jorginho between the lines gave Arsenal that character. Right now, there is no one doing that. So in the meantime, in the most recent match in the Emirates, are the players who receive the ball facing their own goal are limited in their choices and are making passes back toward the goalkeeper. That is why Raya's long ball numbers have gone up significantly. What Arsenal need now is exactly that type of player. Someone who stands between the lines, demands the ball under pressure, and relieves the team. Until they have that, the ball will keep going long. Zubi was intended to be this player, but he's not doing that. In fact, he's a targeted player. Araola's game plan is similar to what Guardiola did in that City game. From the very beginning of the match, it was clear that they were pressing Arsenal high up the pitch when out of possession. However, they weren't pressing the last man. For example, Raya wasn't directly pressed. Instead, they blocked the passing options Raya would normally use to distribute the ball. In that other game, one of the reasons for the struggles was Kepa. Raya's skill in playing with his feet as a goalkeeper is not in question. It wasn't just because he made that mistake leading to a goal, but also in Arsenal's attempts to play out from the back. It was noted that Raya didn't have the same technical efficiency. Now, Raya is a better goalkeeper at playing with his feet, but have you seen him make such possession errors recently? He's a risk taker, so sometimes he makes mistakes. We've seen goals conceded from his errors, not many, but I don't think I've seen him make repeated mistakes in the middle of a game recently. For example, once, Ivanosan tried to intercept a pass on the outside of his foot, and it went out. On other occasions too, when he tried to play short passes to get out, there were many mistakes. 1. It's a problem with Arsenal's build-up structure. 2. It's Bournemouth's excellent pressing plan. So, sometimes he was forced to hold onto the ball for a long time. He was forced to hold onto it seemingly by design. There's a tactic called delaying, isn't there? The goalkeeper holds the ball to provoke the opponent's press, inviting them in to then find a passing lane behind them. But because it was a well thought out plan, When Raya held the ball, there were two problems. Bournemouth knew what they were doing, so no player would come to press him. The longer he held it ... Arsenal fans' desire is different. Sometimes it's difficult when the stadium is filled with emotion. When anticipation and anxiety increase, it becomes hard to implement the game plan. The fans would shout at him to release the ball quickly. Now, here's another problem. If he plays long, Arsenal needs to win the first and second balls, and they weren't doing that because Bournemouth players were winning every aerial duel. This is a major issue. The goalkeeper played many long balls without realizing it, 22 long balls, which is surprising given his season average is 15. He was also forced to touch the ball excessively, totaling 60 touches. Arsenal couldn't progress. Here is a shocking stat. Arsenal players passed back to the goalkeeper 38 times, so he touched the ball 60 times, which is 20 more than his average. It's a glaring problem in the build-up. Now, I'm questioning Arteta and his assistants' ability to find solutions because this is the second time this has happened in less than a month. It happened in the City game. He didn't have enough of a reaction in that game, meaning he didn't react quickly enough with bench options or from the technical area. In this match, facing a similar challenge, finding a solution is the coach's job, and he couldn't do it. The difficulty in building from the back isn't new, and Iraola seems to have been inspired by that City game. He builds a strong pressing team last season. His team was number 1 in the Premier League by many pressing metrics. Usually, teams at the Emirates retreat rather than pressing Arsenal like that, but seeing the team struggle in the City game just have reinforced the belief that Arsenal can be squeezed. As a result, Arsenal struggled greatly to even get out of their own half. The absence of players like Martin Odegaard raises significant questions about the team's overall technical quality. In the past, Arsenal relied on the technical security of Granit Xhaka, Oleksandr Zinchenko in central roles, and Jorginho. Even Thomas Partey is excellent at receiving and passing under pressure. Currently, many fans argue the primary target for the next transfer window must be raising the team's technical floor. A major recurring issue is attacking balance. Mikel Arteta's coaching staff seems to be fielding to many similar profiles together. For instance, looking at the front line today, Gabriel Jesus, Gabriel Martinelli, and Madueke are all runners. When you play 3 runners, you lose technical control. Kai Havertz has been successful at Arsenal as an attacker, but not as a midfielder. While Arteta may have used him in midfield due to limited options, his history shows he is far more effective further forward. In the first half of the 2023-24 season, the experiment of playing him deeper failed. It was only when he moved up front in the second half that he became truly effective. Arteta needs to understand player combinations better. I've used this analogy before. If you are building something, you need both screws and nails. One requires a screwdriver, the other a hammer. You need the combination of both for a secure build. You cannot build a team with only one type of tool. One of Arsene Wenger's greatest strengths was his understanding of this balance. His best teams always had runners, players like Marc Overmars, Theo Walcott, or Freddie Ljungberg, who repeatedly attacked the backline. However, the opposite wing would always be a playmaker. Robert Pius, Samir Nasri, Tomas Riziki, or Alexander Lub. He never fielded 3 runners at once. While Saka's absence is an excuse, the attacking balance issue is a chronic problem. In the Bournemouth game, Arsenal's open play XG was a staggering 0.19. The total XG was only inflated by the penalty and a Havertz header. Bournemouth, by comparison, created 1.2 XG. This failure to create from open play is directly linked to player selection. Gabriel Martinelli, for example, is often more effective as a finisher off the bench when he can use his speed against tired legs. Starting him often leads to him being anonymous. In the first half of this match, he managed only 3 passes. Arsenal lacks maverick players, individuals who can win games through pure technical personality when the system coordination fails. Someone like Ryan Cherky, a player who dares to receive the ball in tight central areas and dribble past 2 or 3 defenders. Arsenal needs that unique, bold profile to break down structured defences, but for a unique profile, perhaps Ez comes closest to fitting that role. However, Ez also plays a lot in central positions. Regarding Ez specifically, as you know, he wasn't featuring for many months due to injury. It is only recently that we are noticing him starting to appear in consecutive games. So in terms of profile, you can see this kind of profile shortage in the squad. So the attacking setup wasn't right. What I have raised now is specifically regarding the attack. We have probably reached the point now where thinking about something different in the midfield must begin. It could be because he has played many games and is fatigued. It could be that opposition players are specifically targeting him, or as we've been seeing recently, it could be because the opposing team's pressing has blocked the ball from reaching him during Arsenal's initial build-up phase. But there is also a technical deficiency in how the players deal with the ball. The same applies to Rice as well. Playing him as a 6 defensive midfielder could be one solution, but when playing him as a 6, if you remember, in his first season, back in 2022, his technical quality in that role wasn't particularly high. But what did Arteta do? He partnered him with Jorginho. Jorginho is a tempo setter. The expectation was that Zubimendi would be that player. I see him doing exactly this when he plays for Spain. Now Rodri has returned, but after the European final, when Rodri was absent, he didn't play much, most of the time. He's Spain's national team tempo setter. He has over 90% passing accuracy. I don't think Arsenal, in a Premier League game, has ever reached 90% passing accuracy until now. Whose fault is it? Personally, I think this type of player aside, Arsenal also has a midfield problem. Arsenal specifically has a problem playing under pressure. I was looking at stats shared by a Telegraph writer called Sam Dean about Arsenal's 2 midfielders. The ball was lost 29 times by them. That's what possession loss means. 29 times total. Havertz 17, Zubimendi 12. The opponent's pressing strength reveals Arsenal's midfielders' lack of press resistance, their inability to withstand the opposing team's pressing is clearly visible. Now when we come to the manager, he made changes. I don't know any top manager who brings on 3 players at the 51st minute. Today I am being hard on Arteta, but for the first time, it means he had only played about 5 or 6 minutes after returning from the break. That corner kick was what delayed the change until the 54th minute. Otherwise, Arteta had the players ready to make 3 substitutions at the 52nd minute if some adjustments were made at half-time. If there was a tactical discussion, shouldn't he wait a little for that to work? Should a manager lose hope within 5 or 6 minutes? As a matter of principle, he completely lost hope. If he believed a change was needed, he should have done it right at half-time. For example, putting in Ez after the break, taking out Havertz and bringing in Ez, or taking out Martinelli and bringing in Trossard. The 51st minute the players are already standing there, ready to come on. What this tells me is a nerves issue. Most of the time we say the players are nervous, the fans are nervous, but Mikel Arteta is nervous to right now, and you can see it. I raised this in the Manchester City game. At the 55th minute he changed 4 players. From the 55th to the 90th minute, he only has 1 substitution left. Even if the players get injured, there will be no solution. The game will be finished with 10 players. The result is 1-1. So, you can bring in 1 player. At most, you can bring in 2 players. But 3 is drastic. 3 is drastic. The message this sends is that the manager is nervous. It's 1-1. It disrupts the entire water balance, likely meaning team flow. Balance of the team. There was no balance, but it also changes the team's profile all at once. For example, changing and removing the speed players, Martinelli and Madwek, and then bringing in ball playing, front players who play with the ball. Doku is like that. Now it has to go to another shift. To me, it means players with different characters should play together. That's my humble opinion. I might be wrong. We have raised these points at different times, because the problems became so large all at once today. It's not a new problem. We've seen it on other occasions, and the way I see it, as a manager, you could see a deficiency here. It's a serious problem. For example, replacing Kai Havertz and bringing in Ez, someone who plays between the lines, who can deeply improve Arsenal's build-up and pick out passes to find those runners like Martinelli, Madwek or Jaquias. You wait 10 or 15 minutes. And then once Ez is in, he needs runners, doesn't he? I didn't see him giving Ez's passes to Martinelli in the Bayern Munich game or the Manchester City game. Such passes are given, right? Or in that Wigan game. If you saw those passes, he dropped from behind. He needs runners. You took the runners out. Then you brought in ball front players. To me, that's an issue. I think an elite manager should realize this. This isn't complex nuclear physics. I don't know what the thought process was, unless it was just emotion, unless it was anxiety, unless it was just a feeling of I have to do something. I don't think it was well thought out or well planned, and it happened all at once at the 52nd minute. He prepared all the players. When you are in a panic ... Now, was Martinelli not playing well? Yes, he wasn't playing well. Was Madwek not playing well? Correct, Madwek wasn't playing well. But finding the reason why they aren't playing well is the manager's job. If we look at the players individually, they weren't playing well earlier. The two fullbacks controlled them. Madwek touched the ball 30 times and only made 9 passes. Martinelli only touched it 8 times and made only 3 passes. They aren't playing well, that's true, but finding the reason why they aren't playing well and bringing in a player who helps them perform better is the responsibility of the manager or the coaching assistants. However, he's the one who makes the final decision. I see a problem here too. I saw many problems, because it was a very bad performance. But as a team, isn't this a team fighting to win the trophy? And as Arteta often says, it should be exciting. By the way, regarding the issue of being nervous, I want to add one thing. I know Mikel Arteta has helped create an atmosphere at Arsenal's Emirates Stadium that hasn't existed since the entire move to the Emirates during the Arsene Wenger era. The anthem you hear before the game starts and the overall atmosphere in the stadium has improved significantly. It has been like that over the past few years. Even this year, during the good times, it felt that way. Although we don't get the chance to be inside the stadium, observing from a distance, one can see that the stadium atmosphere is excellent. However, Mikel Arteta sometimes fuels the stadium in a way that doesn't actually benefit the team. For example, before the game, saying, "It's a big day, eat your breakfast early, bring your lunch," and create a different kind of atmosphere. I don't think that kind of sentiment is right. Creating exaggerated expectations and excitement sometimes isn't good. What is needed from a manager at this time is calmness and serenity. Wanting fans to support us is one thing, but this hyperbolic "let the stadium be like this, let it be like that" approach sometimes increases negative tension. It's great when things go well, but when they don't, it becomes a problem. This isn't just about technical issues. Beyond emotion and technique, it seems to me there were tactical problems. There are times when his substitutions have worked, like the Everton game where subs scored, or the Lisbon game where they combined. In fact, there is no team in all of Europe that has gained as many goals from substitutes as Arsenal this season. They have 38 goal involvements from subs, 24 goals and 14 assists. But sometimes it doesn't work, and to me, it felt very drastic. There are tactical, technical and mental issues, as well as problems with in-game management regarding the defence. He recently said they had regained their identity after the Sporting match, but I don't think that identity was present in this game. I saw many problems. Specifically, there is the sense of urgency for a team competing for the trophy, even if the opponent has 2 games in hand. Moving the lead to 12 points is significant. You would expect a team in that position to play with a great sense of urgency. Instead, the game was played very slowly. For a team with such anticipation, playing in such a one-paced way was surprising. It comes down to fear, anxiety, and being nervous. If you noticed, the game was frequently interrupted and disjointed because of this. ***, I think that was one challenge. In fact, let me share some numbers with you about how much the game was being interrupted on both teams' sides. I mean, it had no fluency. In this game, on Arsenal's side, in terms of active playing time, 26 minutes were wasted. I don't mean wasted for the purpose of wasting time, but for example, from restarts to restart the play from goal kicks, 2 minutes and 42 seconds were wasted. 4 free kicks, 6 minutes and 40 seconds were wasted. 4 throw-ins, 7 minutes and 9 seconds. 4 corners, 5 minutes and 28 seconds were wasted. In total, by Arsenal players alone, 26 minutes and 3 seconds were wasted. But for example, let me not take just 1 point when 7 minutes are wasted during throw-ins. It means you don't see Arsenal players saying give me the ball and receiving it, and for the player throwing the ball, you become no option. The actual playing time, by the way, was 49 minutes. On Arsenal side, 26 minutes were wasted. On Bournemouth side, 18 minutes were wasted. Sometimes it's because of lacking options, especially during throw-ins. There is something called throwing retention, meaning the team keeps the ball and continues after a throw-in. This is directly related to personality. Is it fear that made them like this? Or is it fear of receiving the ball under pressure that made them like this? Is it technical deficiency that made them like this? I don't know. It would be one of them. But to me, it seems related to personality. It seems related to courage, to saying give me the ball with courage and taking responsibility. As I see it, the team had many technical problems in all areas of the pitch that we saw in the game. And on Bournemouth's side, the way the 2 goals were scored shows us Arsenal's 2 defensive weaknesses. One is Ben White and Noni Madueke's failure to track Trufford's run. The origin was a Zubimendi pass. He tried to pass to White. White didn't reach the ball, so it went out. But after the restart, the 2 players on Arsenal's right side switch. This is the time you understand why he doesn't start Madueke sometimes. He didn't track his own man. After the game, no player openly criticised anyone here. Arteta didn't want to criticise in public, but privately, I think there will be a discussion with these players. His own man, I think, Trufford, is Bournemouth's left back. It's open space when Arsenal loses the ball. In off-the-ball situations, this kind of switch is common, very common. But Ben White was also not in his position. So between the 2 players, I think it's more on Madueke. But regarding White's issue, I want to raise one thing. Ben White is a player who struggles a lot with injury. He's not a solid defensive fullback like Timber, but I've noticed 2 things. He's a player who has been away from the pitch during injury time, and when he returns from injury, like what's happening lately, he plays in consecutive games. He's a player with a rhythm problem. If you see the games he played for England, he has been playing repeatedly recently, and when this happens, there is a problem. For a player who hasn't played for a long time to be made to play 6 or so games in less than a month, this is a problem. So sometimes, is he able to play in that position? No, Mosquera doesn't play, because you cannot see the strong Ben White. if he suddenly has to play every 3 days. It's a physical shock. When the second goal was scored, as I raised earlier, it's Arsenal's build-up problem. First, I think the ball was spoiled by Zubimendi, but overall, it shows Arsenal's inability to withstand the opponent's pressing. And then, Zubimendi should have been present in that zone. That was also one problem. Asterisk. For Arsenal, we are now at a very critical time in the Premier League. Next week, they play away against Manchester City. After that, they face Newcastle, Fulham, West Ham, and Crystal Palace. These are the final 6 games. Only the match against City is travelling from London to Manchester. All the others are London-based games. However, if they lose at the Etihad, the situation becomes very concerning. That game alone could decide the season, of course. There are more games after that, but if City wins that particular match, it could create a complete shift in mindset. Next week, Arsenal faces Sporting Lisbon, and as much as possible, the injured players must return. The absence of Odegaard in the previous City game caused a major problem. Eze's return is good news, and Inkapi is back to he was on the bench, but it's especially important for technically gifted players like Soccer to return. Victor Gyökeres scored the goal from a penalty. The penalty was given because Christie touched the ball with his hand, perhaps due to proximity. It was clear he touched it, though there was some debate about how close he was. I don't think it's that controversial. However, the fact that Arsenal's goal came only from a penalty shows how poor their attacking play was. So, it's a big week. The title race has suddenly opened up again. City has a chance. They have the opportunity to decide it for themselves. If Manchester City wins all 8 of their remaining games, there are 8 games left for them. Even if Arsenal wins all their other games but loses to City, both teams would end up on 85 points. At that point, goal difference might decide it. But until then, both teams could drop points. Perhaps tomorrow, City might drop points. They are playing against Chelsea at Stamford Bridge. City played very well in their last 2 games and won, but so far, they haven't shown the character of a team that can win 8 games in a row. Their previous to Premier League games against Nottingham Forest and West Ham both ended in draws. I expect both teams to drop points from here on out. However, for Arsenal, showing such a weak performance during a bad time resulting in an even worse outcome will likely leave Arsenal fans in deep thought and worrying.